All right, well, good morning. So like I said, my name is Dave Johnson. I work at the Department of Homeland Security as a Protective Security Advisor. So a lot of times you think of DHS as kind of like you go to the airport, you see TSA, you see the Secret Service when they're guarding the president, or FEMA after a big disaster. Unfortunately, very close to home here. But in reality, our program is very unique. As a Protective Security Advisor, there's about 115 of us nationwide. And our goal is to get out and meet with you every day. So we'll talk a little bit about that more in a little bit. But there's going to be two strong messages that we're going to pass today. One is run, hide, fight. If you can get away, can. If you need to, secure yourself. That doesn't mean hide under your desk. That means lock yourself in a room where you can basically have cover and concealment. So cover is going to protect you from any kind of assailant, and concealment is going to conceal you. Okay? And we're also going to talk about see something, say something. Is that better? Yes. Perfect. And so when you say see something, say something, that means that you should basically look out. If something doesn't look right, you should say something. People are saying, how are you going to do that? So before we get started, real quick, we're going to do a little exercise. I want you to turn to the next person next to you, and I want you to introduce yourself and shake their hand. You guys did an awesome job. Now I want to tell you something. By making that introduction, you've actually made an assessment of the person sitting next to you. Did they have a firm handshake? Did they have a weak handshake? Were they cold and clammy? Did they avoid eye contact? Were they nervous? Did they have something they were trying to hide? Did they turn away from you? Those are all things that you can basically help to do to analyze somebody and determine if they could potentially be a threat to you, your facility, your house of worship, your business, etc. So like I said, as a Protective Security Advisor, we kind of have a unique role. And that unique role is that we get out and interact with state and local law enforcement, and we interact with the private sector on a daily basis. And our whole job is from a preventative posture. And that preventative posture is being able to work with you, listen to your good ideas, and take and share those with other people, but in the same respect, be able to share those lessons anonymously with you. In addition, we do a lot of other things in the community here. We go out and do a lot of security assessments in partnership with Bill's office. And we are also able to go out and actually serve as a liaison. So like this weekend, I'll be up with the Baltimore Police for the horse races on both Friday and Saturday. And we provide that liaison back to the department from a federal standpoint in that case. So you can see every day is a little bit different, very, very diversified. But one of the most rewarding things, we have an opportunity to come out and meet with people like you and listen to your ideas and your insight, and it really does make a difference, sir. So a little bit about Bill.
Good morning, I'm Bill Chevron. I'm a lieutenant with the police department. I'm the commander of our Operational Preparedness Division. And on the day-to-day, I have our Homeland Security detail, our gangs, our crime analysis, and our criminal intelligence. My boss, Captain Jim Marshall's in the back. He came down at 10. He oversees the entire bureau. So housed in our outreach division is community outreach, which is a division that is devoted to nothing but making partnerships with the community. Our youth section, which includes our school resource officers, and my group. So on the day-to-day, all three of us work together, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the investigations that we work on, some of the threats that come in, whether it be school-based, the infamous Snapchat and Instagram leads that we run down. But our job mostly is to outreach with the community. So we do a lot of work with churches and businesses in the community. Dave and I have been working together for the last 2 years. And I just want to let everybody know that on June 13th at 6:30 p.m. at Oakland Mills Interfaith Center, Dave and I, in partnership with the Jewish Federation, are putting on a safety and security event where not only will you have active assailant, you'll have DHS, our Office of Emergency Management will be there with a table talking about some of the programs that they run, and we'll also have our fire department there talking about the programs they run, like Stop the Bleed and CPR. So we can talk more about that at the end if you have questions about when and where. We can send you the link to register. But really it is about getting into the community and help you be prepared as possible for if an incident like this ever happens.
Awesome. All right. So, a lot of people ask us on a regular basis, what is the threat today? And I will say the threat has evolved. Back around 9/11, a lot of people, before really social media was in place, that wanted to do harm, had to go and find a group. They had to try to get recruited. They had to try to go out and basically get part of a larger effort in order to actually cause harm to people. And in reality, a lot of times those individuals would get caught along the way by the different intelligence and law enforcement measures we have in place to basically prevent something bad from happening in America. But every now and again, unfortunately, something like 9/11 does get through. But I will say that the people that go and do those things overseas, they're trying to basically get connected. But when they get there, a lot of times they end up being put on the battlefield and killed. Now today, fast forward into today, it's almost like long distance education. These groups encourage people to go out and basically, if they do something, if they watch the video or get the message and they agree with it, and if the organization likes what they did, then they'll take advantage of that from a public affairs standpoint. A lot of these foreign terrorist organizations actually even have a public media arm, and they even have a magazine called Inspire Magazine. I suggest you don't go Google that, but it does have a lot of information out there, tactics, techniques, and procedures, and they kind of tell you about the 90% solution. And a lot of things they harp upon are like they did for the Boston Marathon bomber, or the different techniques employed when they're trying to derail trains, etc., like that. They kind of have an idea, but maybe not an exact science how to do that. But in reality, it's a lot more than just an active shooter. Okay, so a lot of people think that you're going to engage with a pistol or a long gun, but in reality today, as you can see, as we saw in the south of France, and most recently, we heard about the initiative that they were able to disrupt at National Harbor. Anybody heard that in the media? Basically, there was a very radical individual. That individual had gone and acquired a large rental truck, and they were going to run over a lot of people. Kind of like what happened in the south of France. That individual was very, very determined. And due to the successes of a lot of local law enforcement, including Howard County, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they're able to actually apprehend that individual, but not before they took the truck, drove out to Dulles, drove around with the intention of actually making an assault that day. There weren't enough targets on scene, so the person went down to National Harbor, same thing. So people don't just wake up and think about these events overnight. They spend an average of 3, 6, 9 months thinking about how they're going to cause harm to a lot of people. And they spend about half the time actually collecting intelligence or eliciting information from people. It could be just like people you would hear in the room. That's why it's very, very important on that see something, say something message. If something doesn't feel right, if you don't have a gut feeling, you need to contact local law enforcement. You're very, very fortunate here in Howard County. Very proactive program, great outreach to the community, and they're going to come out and talk to you. They'd rather investigate 100 false calls than have to respond to one real incident. I'll tell you that for a fact. Okay. Edge weapons can also be a tool that can be used, so you have to be aware. If someone's carrying around a kitchen knife and walking around downtown at the fair, you need to say something. They're probably not a chef going to work. Maybe they are, but that's for law enforcement to figure out. Okay. So, kind of refocusing on the active shooter, because that is still what a lot of people determine, even though it can be a lot of other things. It's not something that's domestic violence related. So we're going to show you the definition here in a minute. But it's not terrorism, it's not criminal activity, it's not drug and gang violence. Okay? But what an active shooter is an individual or individuals. That's very important because we're going to talk about that in a minute here. Actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined or populated area. And in most cases, active shooters use firearms. Once again, they can't use a vehicle, they can't use an edged weapon, they can even use a chemical, biological, or radiological attack. One of the things we're looking at quite a bit now is the use of those chemical, biological agents along with unmanned aerial systems. I will say right now, if you see an unmanned aerial system, a UAV, a drone, whatever you want to call it, flying around Howard County, you need to call the police. And I'm going to tell you why, because you're within proximity of Baltimore, Washington Airport. Very, very strict rules and regulations. And I'm not talking about the kid next door flying around his backyard 10 feet off the ground, but if you see something at a higher elevation, more commercial in nature, over a major roadway, over a major area, populated center or fair or festival, you need to say something, okay, so that can be investigated properly. So specifically in terms of an active shooter, yes ma'am?
I've seen drones a couple times over, like, Howard County Conservancy. So what number do we call and we see that?
911?
911?
Yeah, if you see something that's suspicious, just call 911 and they'll take the information and they'll dispatch the call appropriately.
And within the state of Maryland, and on top of that, if they see something suspicious and multiple different municipalities see that, they're actually going to put that information together. So that's the job of law enforcement. You're going to hear about that a little bit more too later on, but absolutely call and report it, okay? So specifically in terms of an active shooter, these are some statistics the FBI has put together. From the year 2000 to the year 2017 there was actually 250 recognized events that fall within the definition that we just showed on the screen of an active shooter or shooters. About 2,217 people were affected, and those were basically casualties. Yes, ma'am?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify for the previous question. So when you say, backyard, kids might be flying a drone about 10 feet in the air, that might just be, someone playing with their equipment. But if it's higher up as well as if it's over certain areas, that's what we need to call?
It really has to be a determination that's made on a case-by-case basis. I will say, from a technical standpoint, even if you're 1 inch off the ground, you're in FAA airspace. It may be controlled or uncontrolled, but what's critical is your proximity to your major metropolitan areas as well as PWI. So if you see something at an elevated height above someone's roof and trying to, look around, because there's a lot of privacy laws in addition with those assets being looked at neighbors and privacy and things like that. If you're unsure, contact law enforcement. That's why they're here. That's why you pay their tax dollars to go and investigate the situation, see what it is. These systems can also be part, you can put a weapon on there of some form in addition to spying. So there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Could you put this number in context for us, the 250 incidents over 17 years?
Right. So those are the active shooter incidents that fall in line with the definition. So the definition that you saw up on the previous page is a joint definition between the FBI and DHS. These are FBI statistics that look at it. But if you factor in all those domestic violence, gang-related events, etc., then the number is going to be much higher. But those are more targeted events. It might be a drive-by. It might be someone who shot accidentally while one criminal is trying to engage another. That is not considered an active shooter. An active shooter is considered exactly by this definition right here. Now, I will tell you different organizations outside the FBI and DHS may have a slightly different definition, and that's why it's always difficult to analyze things from a perspective. But from an official perspective, this is how we look at it, okay? And of those 250 incidents, like I said, there's about 2,217 people that are going to be a casualty. That means they're going to be injured or they're going to be killed. Odds are, if you had 3 people that were part of that casualties, because you can see one's going to be killed and 2 are going to be injured. Simply by receiving this training today and having the opportunity to partner with local law enforcement, your odds of survival are going to increase at least tenfold. Perfect example of that is the Tree of Life Synagogue over in Pittsburgh. My counterpart there had been to that facility 6 months prior to the incident. They had had this training, they had worked with their volunteers, they had done a facility assessment with the Pittsburgh police, and the leadership says to this day, and I was just at an event earlier this week where the leadership from the Tree of Life, as well as the leadership from Charleston, and the leadership from down in Sutherland, Texas, were there at National Cathedral with the DC police to talk to members of the community down there. It could have been a lot worse. And basically by having this training, they say that could have been 111 people killed instead of 11 easily. So by taking the step, even coming here today, and listening to this opportunity and listening about see something, say something, and run, hide, fight, and partner with the community policing efforts here in Howard County, you're in a much better posture than you were otherwise. Okay? So look at this. From 2000 to 2017, really there was one incident back in 2000 that fell into this definition. But you can see there's a constant increase up to 30. It takes about a year to kind of analyze all this data from a very analytical standpoint. So in 2018, it was 27 incidents. And one of the big power initiatives that push it that high is social media. Social media can be your friend, and it can be your enemy. You've always heard the analogy, if you go away on holiday, you probably shouldn't post that on Facebook, right? Especially if it's open to a lot of people. You definitely shouldn't be taking pictures of you down on the beach in Florida and posting and showing everybody how great time you're having, because people can analyze that. If you live in an apartment or a condominium, it used to be a lot of the apartment condominium numbers were numbered on the parking places and aligned with the apartment or condo. Not a good idea, so they changed it, because people could see when that person was home or wasn't home. So a lot of common sense initiatives that you can do, you know, are really is going to make it, your odds much, much better in the big picture. So this is those 27 incidents that we're talking about. And this kind of takes it to a unique perspective for last year, because it shows you where the incidents happen. And you can see that Maryland is one of the states that had 2 incidents marked in green. And those 2 incidents were the Rite Aid warehouse up in Harford County. Unfortunately, they've had a number of active shooter events over the last few years, and the Annapolis Gazette. And the thing that's surprising about this is a lot of the tactics and techniques and procedures being employed by these active shooters repeat themselves. So it's very, very important to partner with the local law enforcement to come out to your facility and do a walk around. And they'll be able to tell you some of the indicators and some of the things that they've done. Because complacency kills, right? People get lazy. So your odds of survival, once again, can be greatly increased. So by location, and it's a little bit dark, but you can see, how many here people work in commerce on a day-to-day basis? So a few, okay? How about education? Quite a few there, okay? And you can see how many people go outside and walk around the mall or go to Ellicott City or anything else in the area. Pretty much everybody's hand goes up, right? So you can see that from all these put together, commerce, education, open source, you're a large slice of the pie. You're in an area where something that could happen that could be very, very bad for everybody involved. So by keeping in mind the Run Hide Fight we're going to talk about here is going to be tremendous. So now we've talked about where the threat happens. Who is the threat? What do you think when someone says active shooter? Describe them to me. Are they young? Are they old?
White male.
Okay, so military age male.
Yeah, maybe like 23, 25.
Okay. Check this out. These are 6 active shooters that recently were engaged. Colorado, Virginia Tech, Florida, out in California, U2, and Aberdeen at the Rite Aid warehouse. So who's going to be the next active shooter? Anybody. So that's why it's very, very important. If you see something that's suspicious, report it. We do a lot of house of worships, we do a lot of schools, we do everything from water treatment plants and nuclear facilities. But one of the things we always tell people, if you can have someone that interfaces with the public or people that are visiting your facility, that's tremendous. Even to maintain eye contact with them, how you doing today? If they act unusual, then you should contact the authorities or the security of your facility. Because you never know, they might have been trying to probe other facilities or other areas, and so they can basically try to prohibit something from that happening. Okay, so a hard target versus a soft target. So if you think of a hard target, think of a military base, a police station, something that's fortified, that you maybe would want people to come, but you definitely want to control their access, okay? But you also may not consider a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, or a controlled healthcare facility, or IT. How about a meat packing plant? Why would you want a meat packing plant to be somewhat hardened and have some security? Yes, sir.
Keep the food supply safe.
Absolutely. That's a big thing. We're a very critical location right here on the I-95 and between on the Mid-Atlantic region where there's a lot of warehouses. So same thing with the Rite Aid warehouse. That was a controlled facility. So that, now you think of the mall a few miles away. That's a soft target. Because you want people to come to your facility, right? You want people to buy things, like a lot of businesses today. So what's this facility right here that we're in? Is it hardened or soft? Soft. Or maybe a little bit higher, maybe in between, like a medium target, right? Because you kind of, who came in through the handicap entrance on the 3rd floor? A few people, right? Okay, it's kind of unique. It's got a camera, it's got a button you push, and after you kind of navigate some maze and stuff there, in kind of a soft area, then you get in there and you're in the building. Imagine if that was unlocked though. What about when you come in the front entrance here? Okay, but someone's at the desk, there's always walking around, right? So it's always good to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on, because 90% of the people go out the same entrance they come in. It's like you're sitting in this room here right now. How many entrances and exits are this room right here right now? 3? Who else has a number? I just saw 1 or 2 because I came in over here, right? What else? 7. That's right. There's 7 ways in and out. And if you notice, is this one over here is kind of maybe blocked. You don't really know unless you push those back doors open and walk, because there's actually emergency exits, but they may be secured. But the good thing is, like, this door's alarmed. Because one of the big things that common criminals, as well as anybody who wants to do harm, is they're going to try to prop a door open, or put a rock, or put a piece of tape over the lock. That kind of alarm will go off if you leave it open. You can program it for like 10 to 15 seconds. Same thing if you have a chance to look at these handles on the back door before you leave. You can actually, what happened at both the Annapolis Gazette and Virginia Tech, active shooters went and chained those kind of doors shut so they can control where people can exit. So these are the type of techniques and tips that the law enforcement can talk to you about when they come out to your facility. It's pretty cool, you got 2 handles in each door, but did you know that 90% of the people use the right handle? So if you look at new doors, they only have 1 handle now, and that's on the right-hand side. So you call a locksmith, they take the handle off, they put a plug in. It's easy to do, okay? So you're increasing everybody's chance of survivability there. Alrighty.
So how do we prevent the next active shooter? Well, you empower your employees or where you go to your house of worship to see something, say something. Train employees to recognize behaviors of concern. We all have that baseline where all my coworkers know my baseline. I'm usually the same way every day. If they see me acting different, they may know. But how many times do we actually see somebody that's acting different and we say something? Dave talked about the person at National Harbor. What were his triggers? What did people see different with him? He had lost his job. He had just went through a divorce. He became radicalized, and then he went and stole a truck and was going to commit that act. So, and instill a positive culture for reporting. Nobody wants to tell on somebody. Police departments are traditionally horrible, or they have the reputation for not reporting. If you look at what's going on in Baltimore City, the thin blue line where they protect each other, that's kind of a myth, because nobody in Howard County wants to work with a bad police officer, because if we have one bad one, we all look bad. But even in your places of employment, are you empowered to go to human resources or go to a supervisor and say, Steve never had any interest in weapons, but now all of a sudden he's talking about ammunition and buying guns and doing this, and he's angry all the time. Is that a behavior for concern? Right. We just assisted a defense contractor in the county where they had to terminate an employee and pull their clearance. And he had made some, wouldn't say threats, but he had sent some emails that were kind of suspicious or kind of veiled. So we actually went out and helped them and went through procedures and policies for them, because they had empowered their employees and their human resources to say something, and because they were a defense contractor, it got some of the federal agencies involved. But they had a policy and a procedure in place to prevent that, or to try and mitigate that as best as possible, and conduct appropriate intervention. It really is about see something, say something. We always talk about police departments or police work goes through different phases. In the 80s, it was all about the war on drugs. Now, what we're dealing with today is truly a mental health crisis and an opioid crisis. And how do we respond to those? How do we get people in the proper treatment? How do we get people off the opioids and into treatment? And that's what we work on every day. We actually create a mental health unit within our community outreach. We have a mental health professional embedded with the police department, and they review every time we take a person to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. They review the report and they see what additional services they may be able to get that person or that family into to cut down on the number of times that 911 has to respond to that particular location or house to deal with that person. I'll tell you just a couple of quick stories about see something, say something before we look at a video. Dave and I go around and we do this all over the county. We were in a warehouse that has millions and millions of dollars of inventory. And I was in uniform just like this. And we were walking down the hall, and an employee approached me and said, "Hey, I'm glad you're here today." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "You know, about a week ago, there was a really suspicious van parked in the back of our warehouse, and they were there for an hour, and they were in and out of the van. They were dressed in pajamas. They were smoking cigarettes. Like, did you call us?" "No, I didn't want to bother you, but you're here now. Did you get the tag?" "No, but you're here now, so I'll tell you now." I said, "Well," I said, "you know, there's not a lot we can do. We have no information, but I would encourage you, if that happens again, to call somebody, call 911. And people say, "Well, I don't want to bother you guys." Like, we have patrol officers out 24/7 every day. That's their job, to respond to these calls. And Dave was right. We'd rather go to 99 false alarms than go to one Columbia Mall again. That was very difficult to deal with for all the first responders that were there. The scene was horrific. It's not something that we want to go through again if we don't have to. And if we can prevent it by stopping 99 people that just happen to be walking through or something like that, we'd rather do that. But also, it's not just stopping the next active assailant, but let's say at your business, somebody's walking through the parking lot. Are they checking the cars to see if there's any valuables in the car so they can break in the car and take it? Because I guarantee you, if every time somebody's casing your parking lot or going through, you call 911, the police come out and stop them, talk to them, they're going to go somewhere else. You know, the criminals go where they know nobody's going to bother them, nobody's going to call 911, and they won't be seen. And that's where they're going to go commit their crime. So if you have a policy that everybody's watching, everybody's empowered to call 911 if there's something suspicious, then they're going to go somewhere else. And another story about see something, say something. About 15 years ago, we were involved with a case that probably prevented Georgia Tech's version of Virginia Tech, because Georgia Tech college students saw something in their roommate that was weird, contacted the Georgia Tech Police Department, who contacted the Cobb County Police Department, who contacted the local FBI, who came up to Maryland because the student lived in Howard County, contacted our Joint Terrorism Task Force, contacted us. We actually stopped the kid as he pulled into his parents' driveway with a handgun underneath the seat of his car. And we were able to get him the help he needed. It was more a mental health issue. But because those college students 15 years ago had the nerve to say something, because there was writings, there was some other suspicious activity. Now, would he have committed that act? We don't know. But we know he never did because somebody had the courage to say something. So now we're going to see a video that does talk about see something, say something. And this really does kind of say or show that when you should, the times that you should actually call 911 and let them know that something's suspicious.
The United States of America is home to over 330 million people. We are a country known for freedom, justice, and opportunity. The American dream draws people from across the globe, bringing different cultures, traditions, and ideas to the fabric of our great nation. At the same time, there are individuals in the United States who seek to carry out acts of terrorism and violence against our communities and our country. responsibility for each of us. When you see things that just don't seem right, it seems somehow out of the ordinary, reporting to observe can be invaluable for rural law enforcement and intelligence analysts in the shared effort. Acts of terrorism against the United States can be large or small, and we've all seen their horrific images on television or in newspapers. But terrorist acts don't happen spontaneously. Many require some form of planning. Before they strike, many terrorists watch and study their targets, gather information, test security, acquire funds and supplies, often through criminal activities, and rehearse or walk through their plans. To do this, they may create or change identity documents or badges and seek to obtain information about their targets. These changes or unusual interest in facilities or procedures can be indicators of terrorist planning. Any of what we call these precursor activities might be observable and reportable by a vigilant member of the public. You are in the best position to spot these precursor activities as you go about your everyday activities in your community.
So it kind of does talk about see something, say something, and you notice that they called right away. Especially, we get calls all the time for suspicious packages. People call, and it can be anything from somebody threw away their smoke detector in a public trash can that still has the wires and the lights blinking, and that generates a call to a disgruntled employee that take the cell phone to a box and put it out in front of the door. Do you take both of them seriously so you can figure it out? Do you call? Yeah, absolutely. So, and that really is the message. We talked a little bit about the drones, and if it seems suspicious at the time and something doesn't seem right, then that's the time to call. And you're not bothering the police or not bothering the fire department or EMS. That's their job. Yes, ma'am.
If you're not sure, as an individual citizen, is calling the non-emergency number a nice alternative if people are concerned about alerting 911? You can always call through non-emergency, and then they can make a decision based on your description.
Right, you can call it non-emergency. It all goes into the same system. And the 911 center, they prioritize the calls. So if it comes into the non-emergency number, they will dispatch it, but it all goes into the same center. And even if you call 911, they'll prioritize it. So if there's something in progress, they may dispatch that first, but it all gets prioritized. So either one, and sometimes it's hard to remember the non-emergency number. It's always easy to remember 911. So now we're going to talk about workplace violence insider threat. So when they analyze these incidents, half of them come from an outside threat, the other half come from an internal threat. The last two school shootings were from students that we considered inside. The Annapolis Gazette, that was considered an outside threat. Somebody had a grudge but was not an employee or anything like that. So we define it as any threat or act of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening disruptive behavior. Employees may exhibit direct threats or physical intimidation, stalking, assault of any form, dangerous or threatening horseplay, loud, disruptive, angry behavior or language, blatant or intentional disregard for safety, well-being of others. Again, it's that baseline that everybody we know in our life that they have, and if somebody starts acting out of the norm or starts exhibiting some of these behaviors, you know, we all have stresses in life, whether it be financial, marital, whatever. And sometimes, nobody knows what their breaking point is until they hit it. And then sometimes people act out, sometimes people go get some assistance, but we don't know. So if somebody's acting, you're only protecting yourself by taking the steps to either talk to that person, talk to human resources, or talk to your supervisor to say, this person's acting out of the norm right now. And sometimes, does everybody have like a type of employee assistance program at their jobs? Yeah, that's what they're there for. It's available to help people get through the tough times or get them the services that they needed. and it truly is. We are in a mental health crisis now. That's what we deal with a lot on the day-to-day, is people that are just having a tough time and need some additional services. And it's not, we always talk Baltimore with the don't be a snitch. It's like, well, bullets have no names, and it doesn't take much to be hit by mistake because, you were afraid to say something. So we talked about this, the common indicators. Each person has different breaking point. Multiple behaviors can be displayed. It's rarely new. The patterns often exist. And we talk about people that commit these acts. They just don't wake up one day and say, today I'm going to the Tree of Life Synagogue. They plan it. They practice it. Anywhere from 3 to 6 months out. They'll go test security. They'll go test how far they can get in the building. They'll go watch the comings and goings of the people. They'll sit out in the parking lot and watch, because when they finally decide to commit this act, they have a plan, and they're executing that plan. The shooter knew at the synagogue that they had a security guard there, and that's who he engaged first, because he had done his homework and done his surveillance. Another good story I talked about, I went to a presentation from a security company, and it was some sort of plant that had security, and every day at noon, this person walked a baby carriage past the business, like every day at noon. And they said, that seems really odd. So they finally called somebody after watching it for several days and looking at it on videotape, and when they stopped and talked to him, there wasn't a baby in the baby carriage. So what was he doing? He was obviously surveilling that business for whatever reason, whether it be commit an act of violence or break in or something like that. So these behaviors just don't all of a sudden pop up. You'll start seeing them weeks or even months ahead of time. And we don't like to tell on each other, so the red flags are rarely reported. But the earlier you say something, the better it is, because you can get that person help, or you can get that person at least on the radar of human resources or supervision. So now we're going to talk about what do you do if you were involved in an active assailant, active shooter incident. We always teach run, hide, fight. Your first option is always run. Get out if you can. And if you have evacuation plans for a fire, where you evacuate to for a fire is not where you evacuate to for an active shooter. We always teach that if you can see the danger, you can see the building can see you. So if you're all congregated out in the parking lot and think that you're safe because you got out, you're not safe. You need to get distance, you need to get other buildings in front of you or in between you and the building. Get as far away as possible. And keep running. Don't just stop and leave your stuff behind. When we went back into Columbia Mall, it looked like a scene, the food court looked like a scene from one of those zombie movies, because there was baby carriages, there was cell phones, there was wallets, there was purses, there were jackets. People did the right thing. They left their stuff and got out. And that's what's important. You'll get your stuff back later. The important thing is for you to get out. So your second step, if you can't run, is to hide. What does hide look like? You put as many things in between you and the door as possible if you're in an office. You lock it, turn off the lights, pull down the shades on the windows, and silence your cell phone. People will raise the question and say, well, what if I call 911 and don't say anything? Well, if you call 911 and don't say anything, who's talking to you on the other end of the phone? A dispatcher. And they're going to keep talking to you, and they're going to hear that. And people say, well, I'll just whisper really quietly. Has anybody ever been under severe stress and they can be quiet? Police officers are trained, and you can hear them in a sign of stress we're on the radio screaming. And they're like, I sounded pretty good on the radio, didn't I? You understood everything? I didn't understand a word you were saying because you were screaming. Thank God we knew where you were, because we couldn't understand you at all, and we just came over. But it happens. It's that stress, that fight or flight. The last thing is fight. The last 2 school shooter incidents, 2 students decided to fight. And they probably saved other students' lives because they made the decision. They didn't have the option to run, didn't have the option to fight or hide, and they took the option to fight. And they helped, at least in one case, subdue the North Carolina shooter until first responders got there. That may be your only option. And a lot of people say, well, it's just not in me. I'm just gonna lay down. I'm not a fighter. But what motivates you to get home every day? Is your children, your spouse, your pets, whatever it is, that's what you need to think about. And are you going to do everything you can to get home that day? Some people may just give up and may freeze, and we're going to see that in an upcoming video when we talk about run, hide, fight. But it's a personal decision. We can sit there and tell you, you need to do this, this, and this in this type of incident. Everybody thought the school resource officer in Florida would have gone in the building, right? And he chose not to for whatever reason. So even police officers will freeze and not do the right thing at the appropriate time. So this video is from DHS and is shot in conjunction with the Houston Police Department. There are sounds of gunfire, but there's nothing gory about it. But you know, if you're very sensitive to that, please feel free to get up and leave the room. You know, there is mock gunfire. There's somebody in the video with a weapon, but it's more teaching the concepts of run, hide, fight. So please feel free to leave the room if it's, you know, you're very sensitive to that. There's no problem with that at all.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes, bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try to escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important. You, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. improvise weapons, disarm, and commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
So watch that video. Did anything stick out to anybody? They notice anything that seemed odd or strange, or something that they saw that was kind of out of the ordinary?
The way the guy was dressed.
Right, so it's kind of suspicious walk up to the front door, but we talk about, see something, say something, be aware of your surroundings. The security guard, his back was towards the door. He never saw the guy come in. He's in uniform, so he's the first victim. And then we talk about that fight or flight response, but you also saw the freeze response of the one employee that couldn't help when they were getting ready to fight. That's going to happen. You may not be able to save everybody. Some people just may not be able to go. I went to another presentation where they described it as, in that type of scenario, everybody has a number 1 on their chest. And it's all about number 1. You may not be able to get somebody to go with you because they're frozen in place and you can't help them. Do you leave them? Do you go? It's a tough question. We actually did some work with a hospice center in Columbia and helped them with their emergency plans and helped them with a tabletop drill. What do you do with the patients? You can't evacuate them, so, and that's the thing. It's like, try telling a bunch of school teachers, yeah, you just have to leave your students. That's not going to happen, and that's why schools practice more of securing themselves in place and barricading the door. Yes, sir.
How do you deal with the someone in that situation that was screaming hysterically?
You try and grab them and pull them with you, and if they go, great, but you might not be able to get them to go with you, and that's the thing. And it's, we can sit there and talk about run, hide, fight. Until you're in that situation, until you're in that moment, you're not going to know what you're going to do.
If you're in a hiding situation and you can't run, and the employee is screaming like that,
you got to do what you can to silence them and to get them to understand that, and that you have to do what you have to do. And again, we can sit there and tell, this is what, we're just talking about the concepts of what you should do. What you're actually going to do if you're ever in a situation like that, you're not going to know until you're actually in that situation. Like I said, we used the Parkland School Resource Officer. He was trained what to do in that situation. He knew what to do, and he made a choice that, I don't know why, he's never really spoken about it. He made a choice to stay outside of the school and report the other officers coming. So, and the other thing they saw with the fight thing, you saw the guy hold up the fire extinguisher, use it, hit the guy in the head. That's kind of cumbersome. So what do you do if you have a fire extinguisher is aim it and shoot him in the face, because if you do, number 1, the chemical's going to blind him, it's going to suck all his air away. And then we did a presentation, and if it comes to the fight part and you're able to disarm the suspect, the great question was, well, what do we do with the firearm? Put the firearm as far away from the suspect and as far away from everybody else, because when the police come in, they may have some suspect information, they may not. If they see you standing there with a gun, I can guarantee you're going to be tunnel vision because you're under a lot of stress. You may not hear the police talking to you, and we don't have a tragic accident. So now we're going to talk about the law enforcement priorities. So Columbine was kind of the whole start of these active assailant, and it was a learning experience for law enforcement. Law enforcement, the patrol officers, their job was to form a perimeter around the school. And nobody go in and nobody go out. And they waited for a SWAT team. Does anybody know how long it takes to get a SWAT team on scene?
15, 20 minutes.
At least, if they're working. If you have to call them out, you're talking like 45 minutes. So people in Columbine died from loss of blood, not from the gunshot wounds originally, because nobody got to them in time. So that was a valuable lesson for law enforcement. So then in the video, you saw the 4 officers going through the hallways. That was our next step, was immediate action teams. So the first 4, 5, 6 officers that got to a scene would form this team, and they would go inside. That takes too long. So now what we do, and what we train, is if the first officer gets to the scene and there's active shooting, they're gearing up and they're going in. And that's how we're training. We've purchased equipment, so all our officers are armed with additional ballistic vests. They all have ballistic helmets. They carry bags with extra ammunition and magazines. They carry tourniquets. And on our range, we practice using the tourniquets on ourselves. If we're firing at the range and all of a sudden a part of us has become disabled, we have to put the tourniquet on. And we train. So last February, Sergeant Kelly Pitch is part of my staff. And Rocco Severo is not here. The 3 of us planned a full-scale active shooter exercise over at the lakefront, the vacant office building, where we had role players, we had a lot of bad guy, and we surprised an entire patrol platoon of 15, 16 officers on a Sunday morning and told them, respond here for training, you have an active shooter, there's people down, go in the building and get them. And we had people dressed up as victims, and as the victims came through and came towards the officers pushed by them because that's their job. We're not there to treat the wounded, we're there to stop the shooter, because the longer it takes for us to get the shooter and stop them, the more victims they are. So the full-scale exercise went really, really well. We did it in partnership with our fire department because we've adopted the rescue task force concept, and that's how we train. So before, fire department would stage, and they would wait till the scene is clear. And by clear, it means the SWAT team has gone through every room and made sure that it's secure. Well, guess what happens? People die from loss of blood. So now what we practice, or what we've adopted and how we train, is that, let's say that there's an active assailant on this end of the building, or the other end of the building. We don't have them in custody, but we have them cornered. There's victims in here. We're going to form a security team with our fire department, who also has protective gear now, and we're coming to evacuate the wounded as quickly as possible. So this is considered a warm zone because it's not safe, but we have a pretty good idea that we have the suspect cornered. So that's how we train, and what we're doing now is we're doing a series of smaller scale drills. We do them on early Sunday morning when our call rate is high, and we're pulling like 3 or 4 officers off the street at a time, and we're pulling a fire engine and a medic unit, and we're practicing for like 4 hours, and we're going to continue it throughout the year until every patrol officer and every firehouse has gone through. Yes, sir. Is that a statewide training issue, or are you unique to Maryland? It's not a statewide training issue. It's we adopted it early, and we're practicing it and learning because we think it's a best practice. And other places are adopting it, and there's actually national training coming out now. There's LSU has a program, and they'll come around and they'll train, but we're doing our own training with our fire and police academy instructors and our firearm instructors, because it is about safety, because we're moving, so they're removing our firearms because it's not a live drill. It's really just practicing movements, getting to the victim and evacuating the victim. So it's much smaller scale. We can run like 15 officers through in a couple hours, and we run several firehouses. And we're going to continue doing that throughout the year until we hit all the firehouses and all our patrol officers. And we're in the middle of our annual spring in-service, and we have a 4-hour block that's devoted to nothing but active shooter training. So again, it's practicing movements, engaging, and working on things like that. So it's something that we looked at and we adopted a couple years ago. We're really training in earnest with it now. So law enforcement response, is everybody going to look like me? Is everybody going to be in a uniform? No. You're going to have suits and ties, t-shirts and shorts, uniforms, Sergeant Tibbs and her polo and khaki. You're going to have other jurisdictions. At Columbia Mall, we were swamped with other law enforcement agencies to the point we had too many officers on the scene, but everybody's coming. So if you're encountering somebody that's identified themselves as a police officer, don't have a uniform on, it's probably a police officer, and you need, to follow their instructions because they're not all going to be dressed like this. It's very important that there could be several different agencies there or several different units or divisions that don't all wear the traditional uniform. So I'll talk about police response. That's the DC Navy Yard, and it is jam-packed with the law enforcement and fire and EMS. It's going to be a massive response. I don't know if anybody remembers the news from Columbia Mall. That entire Sears parking lot was nothing but police and fire and EMS and helicopters from every jurisdiction that had one. So it's going to be a huge response, and we're going to coordinate that. Has anybody seen this video, Evan? All right, this is the active participation part for you guys. There's a quiz. So there's a storyline here. I want you to see if anybody picks up some of the other things that are going on in the video. Everybody see that coming? Everybody see the signs? He's looking at a Guns and Ammo magazine in the school library. He's obviously angry about something and gives the girl the finger when she comes to talk to him. He's being bullied. He's watching a video of somebody shooting a rifle. The social media posting with a handgun, making a handgun sign to the teacher. Very few people pick up those signs because we all get caught up in the little story. But that stuff's going on all the time in the schools. Our school resource officers work hand in hand with the school security. And you saw that social media post. I can't tell you how many times our school resource officers are working with school security on running down these social media posts of kids posting stupid things. Or a lot of times we get the story fourth-hand, and when they work backwards to get to the original source of the story, there never was a post. There never was a picture. Somebody told a story, who told somebody, who told somebody, who told somebody. But all those have to be investigated, and we work, our school resource officers, our youth section work hand in hand with the school security department to run those down and to make the schools as safe as possible. But it really is about see something, say something, and most of us don't. When I saw a video the first time, I saw maybe one out of things. Yes, sir?
With your see something, say something, and reporting, do you have an anonymity policy also?
Yes, so if somebody calls 911 and says they wish to remain anonymous, they can remain anonymous. And there are times we get information and we get a little bit of information, the officer will say, can you call the caller back? It's like, no, they wish to remain anonymous, we don't have a callback number. Yes, ma'am? Right, they do, but if you say you wish to remain anonymous, they will not call you back, and there's a record of the call, but the information, the contact information, if you wish to remain anonymous, is taken out of the call. So if you call and say, I wish to remain anonymous, there's a person in green shorts and a white t-shirt standing on the corner looking suspicious, click, that's it, that's all you give. That's the only information the officer's going to get, and the dispatcher's not going to call you back. One question that does come up, and it comes up in the video we talk about SONS or cell phone, is that can you text the 911? Not yet, but we're working on enhancing our capabilities at our 911 center so that you can text the 911. And the whole state of Maryland is working on this next-gen 911 system, which is going to be much more robust, and you're going to be able to put information on there that you want to share and things like that. So we are working towards that capability, we just don't have it yet. So, but that's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions for myself or Dave? Yes, ma'am.
So, one of my biggest questions is with the See Something, Say Something. I know you guys are working with the schools and school resource officers. So I have a teenage stepdaughter. How do you share this information with the teenagers where they are just always on their phone? It seems like they're never paying attention, if you will. Like, what are some of the things you guys are doing in the school? Then how can we as adults help to re-implement and re-share that information?
So we have a school resource officer at every high school, and part of their job is to get to know the kids and gain the trust of the kids so the kids will come to them when there's something issue like that. And you know, I always use this story in these presentations that at one high school, a student was having some issues, some personal issues, and their friends trusted the school resource officer enough to go to him and say, hey, you know, we're worried about our friend. He went to the school office, found out that she wasn't at school that day. He went to her house and stopped her from committing suicide. So it is about building relationships and building trust with the students. We do have a middle school program that we're working on expanding so that students get to know the officers at a younger age, and they get to build that trust with them and know that their information is protected, and it is more about helping them. And it really is about sitting down with your kids and talking to them about, I mean, you know, cell phones are great, but they're also terrible, you know, and it's like you see so many people that are walking through, they live their life in their cell phone, and there's a, yes sir, Captain?
Before we go any further, we're talking about a lot of the issues related to schools. The state of Maryland has a school safety tip line, and these things can be done. You can call in, or with kids, I have sons of my own, they all have cell phones, they're all school age. You can email tips into this tip line, and the number is 833-MD-BE-SAFE. Or if you search Safe Schools Maryland, there's a tip line. In fact, I just got one within the last 5 minutes. Kevin, I knew it'd be the same thing. So we get, the way they're set up, each school resource officer at those schools gets those tips right away. If we get a tip for imminent violence, threat of a school shooting, these tips are monitored by a facility in Baltimore County 24/7. Those tips are sent to the respective 911 centers of those jurisdictions. So if we got, if they received information about an active assailant threat in Howard County, that threat would go to our 911 center right away. Officers are dispatched and given the information 24/7. If it's something of a lower priority, like something related to a traffic issue that's not imminent, that information goes to Mr. Burnett with Howard County Schools. It comes to me, and it goes to police supervisors. So 24/7, 365, those tips are received and disseminated appropriately. And the Maryland School Tip Line is, especially for your kids, they remain confidential. So that's a great resource for them to send that information out.
That answer your question, ma'am? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
In Howard County, the middle schools, they allow the kids to have cell phones. And there's a policy that's looking into this, seems to be a little bit of an issue, but some parents are like, I want my kid to have a cell phone so if there's an emergency. But I heard that that can be a deterrent because kids will try to text their parents and say,
a school system policy. That has nothing to do with the police department.
No, I know, what's your opinion on that, when people say that you're better off just the flight as opposed to the kids trying to tell their parents they're okay, like,
Right, yeah, no, my opinion is put the cell phone down and get out. You know, because, and that's the issue with cell phones. So a lot of Columbia Mall, because of social media and cell phones, a lot of misinformation went out about that incident at Columbia Mall. And that's going to be the issue, because if there's an incident at a school and all the kids are texting their parents, what are the parents going to do? They're coming to the school. Well, guess who's going to have to try and stop the parents from getting to the school, getting their child? And that's more resources we're devoting to traffic control, and that's the issue. But in an emergency, if they don't have their phone on them, they need to get out and leave the phone behind. I know it's tough to tell a kid, but that's really the reality of it.
In the same respect, all the videos you see on it today are on the internet. The video you just saw, Evan, was actually put up by Sandy Hook Promise. So the parents, friends, relatives that lost family members there, they basically published this. Show it to your kids. Take the time to talk to them about run, hide, fight. They're going to listen. I mean, they may not listen to a lot of things, right? I've got kids as well. See something, say something. Get to know your SRO. It used to be SROs were at schools. Really, there is a law enforcement tool. Now they're a mentoring tool, especially for kids that don't have, a mentor in their home. So it's really important to get that message out. In the same respect, take the time to watch the video. If your kid calls you or texts you, it may be hard to do, but reinforce. You need to run, hide, fight. Get out and hang up. It may be the toughest thing you ever have to do. If that kid's there sitting there focused on the phone, they're not going to be, they're going to be in tunnel vision. They're not going to be focused on surviving. Yes, ma'am.
As a substitute teacher, the run hide fight is going to be difficult to share with my daughter, whose daughter who also goes to these schools, is because that would be a lockdown situation.
It's the same thing. So schools that use Alice, right? A lot of schools, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. That being said, they say the first thing to do is to run. Like Bill said, the challenge is when you have a group of kids, one person can't hurt it all out. There's always going to be like herding cats. So they're, in that case, if they're on the playground, or if they're on the perimeter, absolutely you're going to run. If you're in a classroom environment like you are here, you probably have a better perspective to hide. And the last, obstacle, once again, 3 to 5 minutes, the average event's over, is to fight. But if you lock down, if you have drills, if you thought about that, and that's another thing people get asked all the time. Well, who should you involve in a drill, right? In your business, in your school, in your house of worship, wherever it may be, at the mall. And that's who you feel comfortable. But I will tell you, 50% of the threat is internal, 50% is external. If you have little kids, you may scare them. Not a good thing, right? You've seen some of the things in the news about some of these drills they've had around the United States. You have to use a common sense perspective to it. But if it's older kids, you may be telling somebody you don't want to tell the plan to. Okay? So does that answer your question?
I guess so. So basically, in the classroom, you have to hide, even though it would be preferable to run, but if you're in the cafeteria or outside or in the halls, then you should run.
Right, it depends upon what's available to them at the time and where they are. So you can't say, if you're in a school, you're going to hide and barricade. Well, if I'm at the cafeteria and there's an exit door right there, I'm going to have that exit door. So it's situationally dependent on where you are and what's going on and where the danger is. So if you know that the danger's at the other side of school, and if you can get out, get out. But again, if it's like right outside your classroom, you don't have a very option. And we can't answer every question because it's all dependent upon where you are and what's happening. And that's why the school has a security department, an emergency preparedness coordinator, and that's why they're working on all these safety and security plans for each school.
But her point was that some of the schools go on lockdown automatically. And that's your experience?
That's not necessarily accurate. We have new training going on. My name is Kevin Benham, security coordinator for the school. Retired from the American Police Department. Now we train again optional. It's lockdown optional. If you're in an immediate area of threat, then you evacuate. If you're in an area where you don't know the threat, you're locked down barricade because you're safe where you are until the police come and get you. Okay, so that has developed since then.
Yes, sir.
In our house of worship, we have the
standard fire evacuation type of thing. Is that normally a good rule of thumb to follow so that we have a kind of a paradigm of what we should do?
If it's available to you at the time, but it's not so, you never want to do a fire drill if it's an active assailant. So if your fire drill is that we all orderly go through this door right here because it's a fire drill, but you're right by those doors right there, it's an active assailant, go out those doors.
So it really is making sure that our participants know where the exits are.
Correct. It's about being aware of your surroundings, like wherever you go. Does everybody, when you go to a restaurant, does everybody look to see where another exit is? Does anybody look to see where the kitchen door is? Because if there's an incident there, you need to get out of the restaurant, the kitchen door, you go in the kitchen, there's usually an exit door there because that's where they receive deliveries. Yeah, that's just something that when you go, you look to see where you are, where the exits are. Yes, sir.
Just the comment I want to say is that 50% of the threats are internal and 50% are external. So if it's an internal threat to your business, they're going to know what the evacuation site and the procedure. So you're not going to follow that procedure during an active assailant event. Because if everyone's congregating in a parking lot in one big mass of people, that's a big problem.
Right, and speaking of your point too, there's 3 scenarios that you basically can have an emergency in your facility, right? Have a fire, okay? You're gonna pull a fire alarm, you're gonna get out, you're gonna go to your consolidation point, you're gonna go through your little plan. Then you have a tornado, which by the way is probably the highest likelihood of emergency you're gonna encounter here in Howard County. In that case, you're gonna want to shelter in a room, a bathroom, a basement, etc. The last objective here, the active shooter, active assailant, literally we mean run, hide, fight. When you run, it's like Forrest Gump run. You're going to keep running until you can't see that building, like Bill said, because if the shooter's in here, especially they get on a high vantage point, then they can see you. If they run out of targets, they're going to try to engage you. So fire, pull the fire alarm, get out. Tornado, natural disaster, shelter inside, active shooter, run, hide, fight. You got to get away from the building. Think about one last point here, and we're going to have one last video for you, but we're running short on time. If you pull that fire alarm, first thing you think is, oh, the fire alarm. Followed by, oh, it's a fire, let's get out. And we're looking, not thinking about someone trying to shoot you. So you don't want to pull the fire alarm. That's why schools have an awesome program. It costs millions of dollars to put these lockdown systems in. You'll see the blue button, usually with a sheltered cover. They hit that, locks all the doors. Because I want to tell you something. If I pull this fire alarm on this door over here or over here, every one of these doors unlocks. Because that's fire code, right? So the firefighters can get in. If I turn the power off to the building, all these doors unlock. When you hit that lockdown alarm, the opposite happens. They all lock down. That has to be in partnership with a PA system. In schools, you'll see a scripted response because everyone can lock up and not realize what to do. So if you have an emergency, say there's a suspicious person outside, they're going to hit the lockdown alarm, and the protocol they can go through and say, attention all occupants, there's a suspicious individual outside. We must secure a place, or whatever it is scripted. And the reason you script it, I may say something, then different than Bill says something, somebody in school, or somebody else says something. People freeze up and they don't realize it. So there's a multi-tiered response when you're talking about schools. It's a lot more complex, and that's why we have experts that work in the schools full time, because that's a very unique situation. So we have one more video to show you. And this is going to kind of sum it up. Because you know what? You don't want to be tomorrow's news.
I'm here at the scene of tomorrow's shooting, where a 15-year-old will kill 4 children, 2 adults, and then turn the gun on himself.
When the shooting starts happening tomorrow, first I'll probably just think it's firecrackers or car backfiring or something. He told some of us that his dad kept the gun in his closet, and he always talked about using it on, the people that bullied him. Tomorrow I'll probably say that I wish I told someone.
After the shooting, we're going to feel pretty bad about getting on, but until then, we'll probably just keep yamming because it's pretty weird.
Tomorrow I'll probably point out that something has been off with him since the beginning of the school year. And now joined by the officers who will be the first responders tomorrow. What additional details can you share with us?
Well, someone is expected to tell us after the shooting that the shooter has been posting on social media about doing this for weeks.
So how will you explain the shooting to your daughter? Actually, I will get to explain it to her because she won't make it. This is Christine Lynn, reporting from the scene of another shooting. We'll say we never saw coming.
That's how we're going to wrap it up. And there was actually a school shooting in Alaska where a kid told people he was going to come to school the next day and shoot up the school, and 10 kids stood on the upper concourse to watch to see if he was actually going to do it. They knew about it, and they stood there and watched him show up at school and shoot it, and nobody said anything. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. So if you're interested in the June 13th Safety and Security event at Oakland Mills Interface Center, please see me afterwards. I'll get your contact information. There's a link to register. I'll send it to you. If you're interested, Dave and I come into your business or your house of worship, please come see us afterwards. We'll get your contact information. We'd be more than happy to come give this training to whether it be your business, your house of worship. Be more than happy to walk through and kind of take a look at the layout and everything like that and see what plans you have in place. We do have a great tool. It was from Department of Justice called Safeguarding Houses of Worship app. And really what it is, it's a PDF and it basically helps. It's designed for houses of worship, but you can kind of modify it anywhere. It helps you build your emergency plan because it's just not about active assault. It's about a weather event, a medical emergency, a fire, a gas leak, anything like that. So please see us afterwards. You're interested in that, and we'll get the information that you need. And thank you for your time.